This is the TTArtisan 27mm 2.8 AF, and it comes in a couple of different types of mount. This is a Fuji X mount, but it also comes in the Nikon Z mount and Sony E mount. So that's pretty cool if you want to use it on anything else. And what's cool about it is it's a pancake. It's very, very small. And another cool thing about it is it only costs $150. So, what do you get for $150, you might wonder? Well, you get a metal body lens, which feels pretty nice. You get a clicky aperture ring. And a rather smooth focusing one. One thing they've improved upon is in the past they used to have these metal screw-on caps, but now that has been changed to a rather regular plastic clip-on. And if we take a look at the rear side, we see that the rear cap is rather thick at almost half the size of the whole thing, and it has this USB Type-C port. This is supposedly to update the firmware of the lens through this port, and I say supposedly because I haven't managed to do it yet, but hopefully it will work in the future, and anyways, it's pretty cool to see this. I haven't seen it before. You also get this absolutely tiny lens hood, which is probably there more for aesthetic reasons than doing anything. Also, this weighs 88 to 100 grams, the website says. I'm not sure if they're not sure either, just how much it weighs, or maybe it's the lens mount that's different from the different brands, but yeah. But no doubt, the biggest deal about this lens is that AF part at the end of the name, which is autofocus, and that is pretty amazing at this price range. For $150 to get autofocus on different kind of camera systems, even as I was saying, Fuji, Sony, Nikon, is pretty amazing. And if I'm not mistaken, this might be the very first lens from TTArtisan to sport autofocus, because they usually have manual lenses. So the question is it any good? TTArtisan may not be as well of a well-known lens manufacturer as, I don't know, Nikon, Fuji, Sony, Canon, and the likes, but they are actually pretty reliable, and I've done another review of one of their lenses, the 35 1.4, but that one was a manual lens. I think what this lens is great for is street photography. You can just toss it in your pocket and not worry about it, or straight on your camera, and it's great. It's perfect for the city. And also, you won't attract as much attention like with a Canon of a lens. So yeah, it's all positives. Also, I think it would match even better with something even smaller than the X-T4, like the X-T30 or Sony 6700 would be small and light and perfect. You can actually compare this with quite a few different lenses. Fuji, for example, has exactly a 27mm 2.8 pancake lens, so it's exactly like that one, but cheaper. You can also kind of compare it to the 23mm, 33mm from Fuji. Admittedly, they're much faster and more expensive lenses, but yeah, you can make that comparison, and this one falls right in between them as far as focal length goes. That is exactly how I would describe this focal length. It's like an in-between. It's about 40mm in full frame equivalent, which might not be everyone's cup of tea. In my experience, I often need to get closer to the subject, but at the same time, you might also experience that you need to get away from the subject that you can't fit everything you want in the frame. As far as my preference goes, I think I would still tend to go with a 50mm full frame equivalent. That is also how the human eye sees for the most part. You can also make the comparison with the Sigma 30mm 1.4, a very fast lens, a very nice lens. It is more expensive, but not much more. So, by the way, if you want a review on this lens, it's not out yet, but I can make it happen if you want. If you're enjoying this video so far, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me to bring more such content to you. Thanks a lot. With both at 2.8, we can see that there is a little bit more detail on the Sigma, but also it can open up to 1.4 aperture and essentially obliterating the background, achieving much more subject separation, but at a cost. The price is twice as much and it's 3 times as big. And that's not to say that you can't achieve subject separation or bokeh on the TTArtisan, because you totally can. Also, I really like the colors coming out of this lens. But speaking of details, what I've noticed is that wide open at 2.8, it sometimes misses the focus, so it might give you the impression it's lacking sharpness. But when you do nail the focus, it can look quite good. And overall, I wouldn't say about the lens that it's not sharp. I'd say it's quite a decent amount of sharpness. What I will say is that this lens has one of the most pronounced vignetting I've seen in a modern lens, going way past the corners and almost towards the center, and also it can mess up the camera's metering system for exposure, making the image darker. Speaking of dark, even if it's just a 2.8 lens, I've tested it in low light situations and it's actually pretty decent at it. That is, until you meet a powerful light source, and then there's all sorts of weird flaring going on. Can you vlog with this lens? Well, not really, unless you want to see your pores, as you can see, but I don't think it was really meant for that anyway, so that's fine. Can't be used at all for video though, and I think the answer to that is yes, you're seeing it right now. How good is it? Well, I think it can be a pretty useful little video lens, and from what I've noticed, it's a bit less contrasty than other modern digital lenses, and that's actually something that filmmakers are looking for, to take that digital edge off. Sometimes, not all the time, but yeah, it can be an advantage. Take 2. As far as autofocus goes, it's a different story. For the most part, it impressed me with how good it is, especially for photo. But on video, it's got its occasional hunting for focus and stuff. It's not the most modern implementations of autofocus out there, and I wouldn't expect it to be. But as far as their first try goes, it's pretty great. Indeed, the autofocus on this is pretty reliable for the most part. However, there is one more reason why you might not want to use it for video. Yeah, the focus motors are not the quietest I've heard. Lens bleeding is also present, but I wouldn't exactly call this the end of the world. Anyways, I am getting a little bit hangry, so let's go do something about that. One final limitation is that the minimum focus distance is 35 centimeters, which is not that close, so this is about as big as your croissant will get. Also, I don't think this lens was made for portraits necessarily, but you can definitely take some. In conclusion, I think this lens can be a very good match with many people, especially if they are looking for a lens in the 40mm full frame equivalent focal range. It now has AF, which is great, very big plus for me actually, especially on the street with street photography. It's not gonna happen with manual focus. At least for me, I see something, I want to take the shot, I don't have time to manual focus. And I mean, maybe I'm just not practiced enough, but it's way more convenient to have the AF ready to go and for it to actually work, you know, it's good, it's nice. So yeah, I hope you liked the review and found it helpful. Till next time,